Hey folks, Big Woodsman here. Today we're going to be looking at doing some fiberglass repair on the rudder for a sailboat. So recently you saw in a video I took the rudder off the sailboat. Right now with COVID-19, marinas are closed. It seems like a perfect time while everyone's basically trapped in their homes to go at it and redo this rudder. So when marinas finally do open, we've got a perfectly functional sailboat and ready to go in the water. So stay tuned, let's see what we get into. So here is our rudder. We have it up on the table. The pintles that attach to the rudder are in really good shape. Everything's solid there. We have some slight cracking in the fiberglass along the edge, but where our real problem is up here where our tiller mounts. We've got some broken off fiberglass. There's some serious wear along where the tiller attaches. So we're going to go ahead. This is our main concern, but we're going to sort of address all the fiberglass concerns while we have it off. So here's some featherline cracks. It's mainly in the gel coat. It's not really affecting structurally of the rudder, but where we really do have a problem is up here close to the tip where the tiller attaches to the main rudder. I think we've got some serious wear. There's some chunked out fiberglass. It's cracked, so that's where we're going to spend the majority of our work, is trying to fix this up on the top end. So the first thing we're going to do is go ahead and we're going to remove the pintles. We're going to take out the bolts. Now that we have our pintles off and they're out of the way, we're going to go through, and everywhere that there's a little crack, a little sort of superficial break in the fiberglass, we're going to come through with our grinder and we're going to sort of open up those tracks, remove any debris, any chips that need to come out, clean up the edging, and get it ready to apply a new fiberglass coating to it. Don't forget, when working fiberglass, it's always good to have a mask on because the particles are pretty toxic. So be prepared to put your PPE in place. So we've gone ahead with our die grinder and we've scratched all of the gel coat, removed all the cracks in the gel coat. So everywhere there's a hairline crack, we've gone through, we've opened those up, cleaned those up, got them ready to be filled. And up here we had some major structural damage. You can see that we're actually, this piece is very loose. We've opened up all the cracks, taken it right back in almost to the wood. We're going to be filling that with a short strand fiberglass, and we're going to be basically prepping and filling the entire outside. So that's the next step before we sand and shape it back to the original contour. So now that we have our rudder prepped, the next thing we're going to be doing is going to go ahead and we're going to be filling all that with some short strand fiberglass. So we've got some plastic applicators, our hardener, and of course our mixing knife. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to mix up about a golf ball size, maybe a little bit larger for all the work that we've done. You don't want to mix up too much because it tends to harden quickly. Now you can see this needs a good mix before we even start to do anything, so a good stir. So this could be a while. So now that we have our can mixed, we're going to dole up. And now with our hardener, we mix about a 1-inch ribbon of hardener for a golf ball size. So we're going to go about 1.5 inches, 1 3/4 inches. And now we have to mix this up until it's uniform color. Now another step that we did to prep for this is we've taken our rudder and we've completely washed it down with acetone once we took the high air compressor and blew out all the dust, vacuumed it all, cleaned it all up, got it ready to go. So the acetone just takes off any grease, any dirt, anything, so this fiberglass will stick. So once you get that mixed up to a nice uniform color, it's ready to apply, and that's where our nice scrapers come in. So let's go get that on there before it starts to set. These deep areas that we cut out here with the grinder, we're going to try to force that in there as much as possible. And we're going to smooth it out to make sure that we've got sort of the easiest sanding that we can do. Now we just keep going like that over the whole thing. So we have our first coat of fiberglass applied. We went a really heavy coat and we forced it into all of the cracks in the gel coat and relatively rebuilt the end where it was really damaged. So now we're going to let that set, dry. We're going to come back, sand that off, and see where we need to do a second coat to sort of fill any gaps that we have. So while we're waiting for our fiberglass to set, we thought we'd go ahead and we'd take a look at our tiller. So here's our tiller handle. It's in pretty good shape, but the one thing that we have issues with is the connection plates here that go into our rudder. The reason it's been wearing so bad is because these are deformed. They're not quite straight anymore. They're not quite in perfect alignment. So what we're going to do is we're going to go take these aluminum brackets off. We're going to pound them straight. We're going to make sure there's nice perfectly in alignment, and then we're going to go ahead and refinish the tiller handle. So now we have our aluminum plates, our connector plates for the tiller, and they're not very straight. So on the back of our vise here, we've got a nice flat bearing surface. So we're going to sort of go ahead and we're going to knock these back to straight. They're only aluminum, so they don't take much to put back into straight. Otherwise, we don't have to take them out to the real anvil. And there we have it. Just like that, we're back to straight. We're going to go ahead, we're going to use some furniture stripper. It's a type of paint stripper, chemical stripper. Works really well. You'd like to use an old toothbrush. Keep your old toothbrushes around. These things work great for this job. The product is called Circa 1812. It's a great product. It really pulls varnish, old varnish, blisters it, peels it. You put this on, reduces your sanding time by an amazing amount. So yeah, it just basically peels. You just take a scraper and scrape it right off. So let that sit for a couple minutes, and then we can go ahead and scrape that right off. So now that we've let it set, we're going to go ahead and scrape it. This is my favorite style of scraper. Double-sided scraper. It works really well when you pull it towards you. So all you do is just even strokes. And it just pulls that lacquer right off. So that now is right down to the bare wood. So now all we have to do is go ahead and lightly sand. So now that our fiberglass resin is all set, we're going to go ahead with the sander, the electric sander, and we're going to start sanding this all down, making this dead smooth so we can go ahead and prep it for either our second coat if we need be, or our gel coat when we go to finish. So we sanded off the first coat and we noticed that the edge looked very thin. So we've come back with a really thick fiberglass resin on the front edge. This is the edge that the water hits. This is the edge that needs to be the strongest. This is the edge that the pinto's attached to. So we've gone through, we've put on a second coat. We're going to let that set and then we're going to smooth that off and see where we're at. So we've been at it for a few days. We've done multiple coats of fiberglass. We've built up this entire end. As you remember before in the video, this entire corner was completely broken off. It was relatively in terrible shape. And we've gone ahead, we've filled in all of our cracks in the gel coat. We've redone our holes where our pinto's attach. And now we're ready to go ahead and give it our first coat of paint. So we've sanded this down with 60 grit, then 80 grit, then 120, then 220, then 320 sandpaper. And now the next step is we're going to wipe it all down with acetone and then go ahead and paint it. So if we were painting a project that was much larger, I would go ahead and I would mix the paint for the air sprayer. But since we're just doing a relatively small project here, we're just going to go with the spray in the can. What we are using though is a paint and primer all together, so we don't have to worry about an extra step. Gloss white, it's going to look really nice when we're done. So we finished off our rudder. We've gone ahead, fiberglassed it, we've built it back up, strengthened it. It's good and solid, and we've put on a couple layers of nice paint. So it's completely finished. All we have to do is go ahead and put our hardware back on. In the meantime, while we were doing that, we were refinishing our tiller handle. So we've gone ahead, we've sanded this all down, and then we've put about 5 coats of tung oil on here. I really prefer tung oil. It brings out the grain, gives it a nice protection, really makes it look nice. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to mount all of that. Before we mount the tiller bracket to the rudder, I am going to go ahead and I'm going to make a couple of Teflon washers. So that way the Teflon washers will take the wear and it won't wear on the rudder like it was before. So that's our next step. We've gone ahead, we've put our pintles back on. We've used the original hardware. It was all in really good shape. We just cleaned it all up. We went and we straightened out our tiller brackets, so they're nice and straight. They're ready to go back on. All we have to do now is create our Teflon washers to create a nice smooth surface so it won't chew into our rudder. So what we're going to be using for our washers, our wear washers, we've got a 1/2 inch thick puck board. It's like the board that you find on the side of a hockey rink arena. So we're going to be taking that. We're going to be using our hole saw. We're going to cut a 2-inch circle, and then on the bandsaw we're going to slice it so we get just about a 1/16 of an inch washer out of it. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to drill this and get our pieces. So here's the starting of our washer. Yeah, as you can see, it's way too thick. We need to bore out the center hole. So we're going to bore out the hole to match our bolt. We're going to slice it on the bandsaw to get a thin washer, and then this is going to be our bearing surface. So we've gone ahead, we've made our Teflon washers, and where these are going to go is they're going to fit right inside here and here, and that way it'll cause a nice smooth plastic surface between the metal and the actual rudder, and that way it'll wear on this and not actually score out our rudder. So we're going to try that and see how that goes. So there we are, we've installed our Teflon washers. As you can see, there's one sitting just inside the metal and on the rudder, and then we also have one on this side. So now when we tighten down our bolt, our tiller arm moves smoothly and freely, doesn't rub on our rudder, and stays in position. So we've gone ahead, we've rebuilt our rudder, we've completely fiberglassed it, repainted it, we've refinished our tiller arm, and added Teflon washers to reduce the wear. This is now going to last years and years before we ever have to do any more work to this rudder. So the next step is to put it on the back of the boat and get the boat in the water. So remember, it's life out there in the woods. I'll see you out there in it.